Doesn't seem like it's been recording for 30 seconds. I'm not sure if this is going to record or not, but let's go ahead and get started with it. So we had our exam last Thursday. If you haven't checked your exam grade, it is already posted on Springboard. And let's see what else we have here. We're going to start on Chapter 7, and we may make it through Chapter 7 to Chapter 8. I'm not sure if we're going to get to Chapter 8, though, but we'll see. A lot of Chapter 7 is stuff that you already covered in lab, so you should be pretty familiar with that. This will be kind of a recap for all of you. So what we're going to be discussing today is Mendelian inheritance, which is Gregor Mendel and his theory about the pea plants, peas like garden peas, and how traits are inherited. So does that look really green? I wonder what's up with that. It doesn't look. No, it's not green on my screen. I don't have any idea why. Let me see if something is weird over here. Whoa. Probably not that one, huh? I don't have any idea why it's doing that. Okay. This must not be my day today. So what's interesting, I think, if you look at this picture, is that all these sets of twins, not only do they resemble each other, obviously because they've come from a single fertilized egg, but they also resemble their parents because traits are passed along from parents to offspring. And what's so interesting about this picture, if you look at it closely, is that the twins often have the exact same hand positions too. So it's not just the physical characteristics that are passed along, it's also behavioral characteristics. So a lot of that is coded for in your DNA. So one question might be, where do we begin and our parents end? As we've been talking about chromosomes and looking at how humans have 23 pairs, 23 that come from your mom, 23 that come from your dad, to make up the 46 that make up you. You have those two copies of each gene. You've got your mom, the maternal gamete, which is the egg, and the paternal gamete, which is the sperm, and they conjoin and they make one set of chromosomes that have come from your two parents. And so you've got two copies of those genes. And that's why kids never look exactly like one another unless they're identical twins. And they are coming from two parents who have very different sets of chromosomes. So they often have little resemblance, a little bit of resemblance. Definitely they're human, so you know that those things get passed along. But kids can look very different from one another, even though they came from the same parent, because of those things that we talked about in class, like the crossing over and getting the 4 gametes out of one set of chromosomes. And so, yep. This is one of the interesting disorders that comes because of the egg and the sperm. If you've ever heard of fish odor syndrome before, this is due to a defective version of a gene, and what happens is that when these gametes unite during fertilization, when the egg and the sperm are coming together, the child gets one copy of the defective version of the gene and can have a silent carrier position. Like what we talked about with dominance and recessive in lab, there's a fly in here too. A child can be a silent carrier of that. So if both parents are silent carriers of that and don't have the actual disorder, but they have the genes for the disorder that are recessive and in the background, if a child ends up with 2 copies of the defective version, then the child could get this. So fish odor syndrome is one interesting one that is a recessive disorder, and we'll look at another one coming up here. This picture is very interesting because we can witness the selection of characteristics happening artificially, or if we talk about them happening in nature, natural selection, then natural selection is where nature chooses the best adaptations to help the individual survive. But we as humans have begun to mess with that over time, where we've come through and done selective breeding or artificial selection, and we choose for the traits that we want in our livestock and in our agriculture. And so once breeders were able to figure out if we breed a cow with these genes, with a bull that has a different set of genes, and we can get this specific set of traits. So like in this cattle, they're looking for increased body size, because the more meat that you have on an individual, the more it's worth to you as a farmer. Or if you're growing milk cows, then you would put the individuals together that are producing the most milk and get a offspring that produces even more milk. And over many generations, you can get the traits that you want. So making observations about these different organisms is very easy. It's easy to look at a cow and say, well, that cow has lots of meat on it, and this bull has lots of meat on it, so let's put them together and see what happens. But that's a pretty long experiment. It takes a long time for the baby to grow up enough time. Can take years for that to happen. So we can make observations about what traits we see, but then figuring out what the genetics are behind that, that's often where the difficulty is. So in lab, where we did the Punnett squares, looking for homozygous and heterozygous and what was dominant and what was recessive, figuring out what's going on in the background is what's difficult.